Namaskar. Hello, friends. We have been looking at suffering. Here is an interesting line. Say yes to pain, but no to suffering. We as living beings are born with a kind of body that is designed and created by the Creator, whoever or whatever that Creator may be. The sensory organs, namely skin, nose, ears, eyes, and tongue, are programmed to receive different types of inputs like touch, smell, sound, sight, and taste, and send an appropriate signal to the brain. The brain then evaluates the input against certain benchmarks and grades the input as pleasurable, painful, or indifferent. In addition, our mind is also another sensory organ which receives ego inputs and evaluates them against benchmarks to grade them as pleasurable, painful, or indifferent. We have no control over the above processes which we are born with. Also, more often than not, inputs being fed from the external world are also not under our control. The benchmarks may vary from person to person depending upon the individual situation and experiences. For example, a sportsman or a warrior in the olden times is exposed more frequently to physical pain, and hence he develops a much higher pain threshold, that is, a higher benchmark, that enables him to tolerate significantly more pain as compared to normal people who are much less prone to injuries and pain. Similarly, a more spiritual person is likely to have less of an ego, and hence his threshold for bearing ego hurt will be much higher as compared to a less spiritual person. Thus, there will be variations from person to person as to how much pain one can tolerate without getting too bothered. However, everyone will find himself exposed to varying degree of pain, physical and egoistic, from time to time. So what the foregoing means is that pain from time to time is inevitable. However, there is another consequence of pain. Pain normally leads to a mental exercise in which we are troubled by the questions: why the pain? Why me? What could I have done differently which would have avoided the pain? When will the pain go away? Etc. That is suffering. It is a post-pain mental phenomenon. Now, this suffering is something that can be controlled, minimized, or prevented by a conscious effort. Whenever these questions come up in our mind, we should immediately become aware of them and tell ourselves that pain is inevitable. Also, we should tell ourselves that the pain has already come into play and we cannot now wish it away by going back into the past. That is, we cannot re-engineer the past that has already happened. Yes, if there is a lesson to be learned, especially if we think we were careless or that we made an avoidable mistake, we should store it away in our memory for future use and quickly move on. There is no point in pondering too much over what has already happened. So essentially, we have to accept the reality of that pain. We have also to accept the reality that the pain will take its own time to go away. Of course, we can take measures to reduce the pain or kill it, and if we are in a position to do so, we may do it by all means in a way that suits us. However, the whys and whens must be pushed out of our mind as soon as they raise their head. Something similar applies to ego hurt too. If our ego gets hurt because someone else said or did something, it agitates our mind with the thoughts of why, and we also tend to work out how I was right and the other person was wrong. That is the suffering. Instead, we should tell ourselves that the other person had a reason of his own behind behaving the way he did. We can also tell ourselves that such events are meant to help us learn and progress spiritually. Then we will be able to move on without indulging in thinking about ways to get even with the offender. Thus, we should keep a clean separation between a purely physical or mental phenomenon of pain, which is beyond our control, and the resultant suffering, which can be controlled or minimized or avoided through a conscious awareness, through conscious mental training and a spiritual attitude. Now let us see how we can practically, in a spiritual way, handle our pet worries. We all have our own pet worries that keep engaging our mind frequently and causing some suffering. It could be the difficulty in finding an alliance for one's daughter, a chronic illness of a parent, or that of the spouse or of self, career anxiety of a son, etc. The mind, impatient as it is, wants the problem to disappear. It therefore keeps churning the problem around, going over the same solutions that have not yet fetched the desired result. At times, it tries to think of new solutions. But the fact is that all of these are by nature long-term problems, and hence defy a solution in the short term. The mind, however, does not realize that going on churning the issue, though sometimes useful, is largely a futile exercise, because more often than not, it keeps going over the same things again and again. This leads to experiencing pain every time the thought of a chronic problem comes to our mind. At the root of this painful situation lies our strong preference for problem-free living. That is our nature. We do not want problems. We want smooth, worry-free living. So we are unwilling to give time for the problem to disappear. We do not realize or acknowledge that everything happens in its own time. We also find it difficult to make truce with the problem. We can't coexist with the problem. We are not even conscious that the reason why something appears like a problem is our conditioning. We are conditioned to believe that things have to be in a certain way only and not in any other way. And when that conditioned expectation is not fulfilled, it appears as a problem. A practical spiritual way out could be like this. Take the problem head on. Ask yourself why, in the first place, the problem should be perceived as a problem. Try to analyze and go to the depth of any thought that seems to disturb you. Consider the following example. It may be a bad example, but just to illustrate the point, take into consideration. You are jobless and are worried because of what the thought, because of that. And the thought keeps coming to your mind often. Keep drilling down and engage your mind in a question-answer session along the following lines. Question: so what if you don't get a job? Answer may be, I have to earn and make my living, don't I? Next question is, so what if you can't earn? The answer may be, then should I beg? The next question would be, so what if you have to beg? The answer may be, that will hurt my ego. The next question would be, so what if your ego is hurt? The answer may be, alternatively, I will die of starvation. The next question would be, so what if you die? And so on and so forth. You will find that you will soon reach a stage where there is no answer to so what if. This helps in getting rid of the ghost of that disturbing thought that is sitting on your neck. As we can see, most of the times we are simply not open to even think why something should be a problem. It is when we take a spiritual approach that a problem ceases to appear as a problem. I'll stop here today. Continue the next time. Until then, bye. Take care.